give us a little more detail into what is a prototype, is that a prototype is really based on our experiences. So our prototype is actually an average of all of our experiences. So it's, of course, an abstract representation, so it's still a representation, but it's of our typical member of a category that we make through experiencing, seeing many different kinds of whatever category I'm looking at. In this case, we're looking at birds. So I see a lot of different birds. And in North America, I tend to see most these kinds of birds, right? Songbirds. I see robins and finches and sparrows and so on and so on. I tend to see these kinds of birds. So this theory says that we see a bunch of different birds. We see them, we see them, we see them, and we sort of create this sort of, you think about it as putting it into a computer program that just kind of averages it into like the characteristics of all the birds you have there, which then is sort of a combination of the features of the birds that you've experienced, heavily weighted by what you see most often. Right? If you think about averages, right? Averages, we add them all together and divide how many there are. Right? This is an average of all the birds that you see. So it's heavily weighted by things that you see all the time. What's one thing that is fun about prototypes is they can be different depending on where you are and what your culture is. A taxi cab in one culture might look different in one place than another. Right? Different kinds of things. But it's our best example, and it's based on my experiences. We make some kind of prototypical thing, and then this is what I compare all my possible birds to. Oh, I see something, oh, is that a bird? Well, let me compare it to my prototype. If it's close enough, I say, yeah, it's probably a bird. If it's not, I say, yeah, it's probably not a bird. But that's one theory about how it is that we categorize information. So that being said, of course, we tend to have, right, for dogs, dog is a concept, a category. And for most people in North America, our prototypes of a dog tend to be kind of more like this, right? It's a retriever, a lab, a shepherd, something like that. Not so much, right? This guy and the mop dog. Got dreads. And it has to do with frequency. I mean, in terms of popularity of pets, of dogs or pets in the U.S., they tend to be retrievers, labs, and spaniels, or shepherds, always spaniels. But those tend to be the more popular ones. Not so much. Of course, now the little dogs are there. But, isn't that right? Also, similarly with birds, which I already talked about, probably in North America, our prototypes of bird, best examples, tend to look more like this, less like our penguin or ostrich. And in fact, this actually brings a problem, because we often add these to our categories because we're told to. Right? So our prototype doesn't necessarily fit all the time. It can lead to problems. We'll come back to those problems in a little bit. So keep prototypes in mind a little bit. But one way that we've got these concepts, we've got prototypes for concepts, and they're all in our associative network. And that means they're related to one another. So they're related to one another. There are different theories about how they're related. They have to do with closeness and association. But one way that they can be related to one another is hierarchically. And what I really mean by that is there's a structure to how things are related to one another. They can go from specific to broad. So when we talk about the structure, relationship of concepts specific to broad, what we're really talking about is category hierarchies. There's some kind of hierarchy of the structure, how things are related. And one of the common ones that we talk about is when we can split things into three. Now, after this, I'm going to talk about how it's not exactly a perfect theory because there are things that can go above or below these levels, but hang with me here for a little bit while I go through this. So this basically says we've got the concepts that we have can be ordered together based on their relationship to one another related to specificity. So here, we've got a subordinate level, a basic level, and a subordinate level. And the levels are determined by the relationship and basically the broadness of that category or concept. For example, up here we've got vehicle. Now this is a super comfort level category because it's pretty broad. What are some vehicles? Well, just name some. What's a vehicle? Motorcycle, truck, train, lawnmower, right, airplane. These are all vehicles. That's a broad category. Now we can take that to more specific and pick one of those vehicles. We could say car. And now we're at the basic level category. Now, basic level categories are actually probably the most important of these, in that we tend to use them most. This is the category level that we learned first and tend to use most in conversation, even as adults. So think about when you were little, the last time you read a book to a small child. And so you hold the book and you point to something, you don't say, 67 Corvette. You don't say that. You point to it and you say, car. Right? You point to the tree and you say, tree. You don't say, silver maple. Right? Or plant. Right? You say, tree. We use the basic level, we learn it first, and we tend to use it most in conversations. Right? You say, my car's in the shop. You don't say, my 2001 Toyota Camry in the shop. You don't say, my vehicle is in the shop. Right? You say, my car's in the shop. We use this most in conversation. Now, of course, we also have our more specific level, which is the subordinate level, which again is just more specific. So here, right, it's a Corvette, or any kind of Toyota. Whatever really kind of specificity you want, there. So you can break things up based on how specific they are. Now it gets a little trickier, and here's where it sort of falls apart to a certain amount. Because there are categories and things that have more levels. Right? So for example, dog could have as a subordinate level canine, and then mammal, and then animal, and then so on and so on and so on. So it's not always a perfect thing, but it is one way that we can think about how concepts are related to one another, hierarchically. All right, so prototypes, problems with this theory. Sometimes prototypes are not necessarily useful when definitions are strained a bit. Right, when examples don't really fit with what we think they are. Right, so for example, considering that the stool is a chair. Well, it has some properties of chairs. You sit on it. It might have 4 legs. Doesn't have a back though. Is that a chair? Maybe not. And when the boundary between concepts is fuzzy, because not all concepts, right, have this nice dividing line between them. Sometimes it's sort of a gradual change. So determining where one concept starts and the other ends be tricky. For example, blue and green. Blue is a concept, green is a concept. But if we start blending them together, right, trying to decide where blue ends and green begins, it's actually pretty tricky. Similar with this scrolling faces on the bottom. This is one person's face being melded into someone else's. It's actually pretty hard to identify where it is that the one person is all himself, right, once he starts changing. When is it all that other person? It's trickier. So it's a little bit harder. And also, when we've got those examples that seem to be contradictory, right? That's why we often have to be told, no, a penguin is a bird. That mop thing is a dog. Right? When the examples of a category are just so different than our prototypes, they're so different from the definition, our prototypes are not really very useful anymore. So it gets to be a little tricky in that sense. Alright, unfortunately, that's really all we're going to talk about in terms of concepts and how do we categorize information. But now, we get to talk about problem solving, which is probably some of the more fun stuff to do. Anyway, that you're probably like. For one reason, because I'm going to make you actually try to solve problems. So. But what is it? What is problem solving? Now, generally speaking, problem solving, you can think about it in 2 ways. So you can think about problem solving as something that has a right answer. That is one form of problem, a problem that has a right answer. Right? What is psychology has a right answer? But, what are you going to do with your life right, is a problem. That is something that you have to deal with, to solve. But there's no one right answer. Right? In fact, there may be multiple answers. There might be, right, just complexity. It's an open-ended kind of problem. We're going to spend most of our time talking about those problems that have right answers and how we deal with those. So, thinking in order to answer a complex question, or how to resolve an unfavorable situation, or you can also think about it as just coping with new situations, whether it is deciding what you want to do with your life, or figuring out how to get to your class on the first day, or what to do about your significant other who is being difficult right now, or what to do about, how to fix your carburetor, or whatever. Those are all problems. Problem solving is just dealing with a new situation, whether it has a right answer, or whether it's open-ended. So what we're going to be doing is talking about the different strategies that we use to solve problems. Primarily, again, we're going to be focusing on those that actually have a right answer. Because actually, the kind of problem solving is much more complicated. But before we get into those actual strategies, I want you to put your hand to trying to solve